Hello and welcome to everyone joining us virtually. And for those of you taking time out to come along on our deep dive discussion, we're going to be talking about some real pressing issues happening in our world today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chantel Bobst, and I'm part of the leadership team at the Regina Apostolic Church, and I have the honor and the privilege to host a heartfelt discussion with three of my friends and members of our church family. We felt it was really important to do this discussion today, and I'm so glad that they have joined us. The recent event of George Floyd's brutal death on May 25th in Minneapolis has unfortunately confirmed that there still is a demonic force that we continue to battle, and that force is called racism. This tragic loss of life has stirred the emotions high among so many people, as we once again see that skin color was the root of this horrific crime. People of all colors and all backgrounds are attempting to unify right now and say, enough. Every black life not only matters, but they are also a precious gift to celebrate. And every person is created by God, beautiful in the eyes of the Maker, and uniquely designed with a plan, a purpose, and a destiny. I want you to keep this verse in mind as we have our discussion today, and it's found in Genesis 1:27, and many of you know this verse. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. The Message translation says it this way, though. God created human beings. He created them godlike, reflecting God's nature. Reflecting God's nature. That means every person on our planet was beautifully and created reflecting God. That is diversity at the greatest. Our Creator God, he understood diversity, and that was his plan for people to reflect him. False judgment, however, has pushed its way into God's design, establishing stigmas and misunderstandings and ultimately creating division based on appearance. Now that has morphed into hate, and that spirit has poisoned our world. Let's call it what it is, though. It's sin. I am Indigenous, and I have experienced the snakebite of racism, and I know the effects that venom has when it is left unaddressed and not talked about openly. I am proud, though, to belong to a multicultural church that loves and embraces people of all colors and ethnic backgrounds, that has a strong leadership team that protects our church family and has zero tolerance for any racial mistreatment, but rather embraces diversity as one family of God. My friends are going to talk about their feelings, emotions, and experiences with false judgment because of their black skin. Racism is a difficult topic to discuss. So often, it's just avoided because we are people who do not like to be uncomfortable. But I have had the opportunity over the last few years to talk about Indigenous awareness to a variety of audiences. And although sometimes it is very uncomfortable, I've learned that sharing the stories, talking about the issues, and addressing misunderstandings is the key to change. And it's helped broaden so many people's understandings. So I'm willing to step out of my comfort zone to bring awareness, but even greater right now, to save lives. I want to take that same approach today by sharing the stories with these three amazing people. So grab your coffee or your tea and join us as we journey together and listen to their stories. As we start things off, I'd like each one of you to just take a few minutes, introduce yourselves, tell us about your families, where you grew up, when you became a Christian. Vivian, can you start?
Well, hello. My name is Vivian Mitchell, and I've been a Christian now since about 1992, which is a long time ago. I'm married to a beautiful black woman, Tommy Mitchell. Actually, Dr. Tommy Mitchell. she'll kill me if I don't say it right. We have two beautiful girls, and I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I moved to the U.S. When I was about 18, and from the U.S. I moved to Canada about 5 years ago. So, yep,
Nice.
that's me.
And yes, you have beautiful baby girls.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. And Christy, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay. My name is Christy, and I have been in Canada for 9 years. I moved from Jamaica, where I grew up, and I was actually born in the Bahamas, but then moved to Jamaica. I have 4 sisters,
Wow.
just girls in the family, and I've been a Christian. I'd say if you're in Jamaica, you're a Christian for all your life.
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
I got baptized for the second time when I was 16. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Great. And Nolan?
Yeah, my name's Nolan, and I was actually born in Sri Lanka, and I was 2 when we came here.
Wow.
So Canada's my home.
Right.
My mom and dad are mixed. Backgrounds. So my mom's more Sri Lankan, Portuguese, and my dad's from Sri Lanka, and he's got African in his background as well. So
Wow.
I'm mixed as you can get.
Some good culture there for
That's
sure.
for sure, yeah. No, I became a Christian when I was 16. Been going to the app since then, and it's a wonderful place, and it's nice to see the different
Absolutely.
races. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, guys. Before we gathered today, I sent you out 5 questions just to set the stage. It was my little mini survey to each one of you. And I want to share with the broader audience those questions. I asked you, because of your skin color, have you ever been called a derogatory name? Have you ever been the object of a racist joke? Been overlooked for opportunities? Have you been denied proper service? Or felt that you had to try a little bit harder than everybody else just because of your black skin? Now, the overwhelming results were yes. Now, that didn't surprise me, but yet it's still chilling and it's still very troubling. Unfortunately, stereotypes and stigmas are established early in life. My personal early awareness with division started when I was in grade 1. And I was going to the big school for the very first time. It was a time where I saw Indigenous and non-Indigenous children all together. My pre-kindergarten and kindergarten years were in my Indigenous community with my peers. So as we were bussed into town for grade 1 to the big school, it didn't take me long to realize the playground has this almost like line of division where there were non-Indigenous kids here and Indigenous kids here. And it was troubling for me. But what was even more troubling is my classroom, even in grade 1, there was also that line of division. The teacher would take a whole group of kids and split the class up. The ones deemed as higher needs learning kids, and then the smart kids. Well, I think it goes without saying what that line really looked like. But for me, as a little 6-year-old girl, I thought, oh no, I had this anxiety thinking, well, where are they going to put me? I have to go on one of these sides. And I came from a family where I have one parent that has white skin and one parent that has brown skin. So really I could go on either side. What I knew though is this made me so uncomfortable, and it wasn't an environment I enjoyed very much. So it was my first taste of there is a division out there. But do you recall your early experience and what that looked like? Vivian, why don't you share with us your earliest experience?
Well, I know this might be uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about, or for a lot of people to hear, and most of us experience these kind of uncomfortable position, I guess, at a young age. And my first experience was It happened when I was about 8, and it was the same thing going to. I grew up in Jamaica, grew up very poor, and where my family struggled to make ends meet. Pretty much hand to mouth kind of a living. But there was something that my parents are instilled in me as a at a very young age is to treat everyone the same,
Right.
treat people how you want to be treated. And so my first experience was when I was about 8. I remember I live very far. My school is very far from where I live. So back then there was no car to home or anything like that. So I had to walk to school. So I remember, and walking to school could be 20 to 30 miles in
Wow.
either direction.
Wow.
And that's being conservative and saying that. So a shortcut was your best way of getting there on time, right? So school starts at 7. We'd have to leave the house by 4:45 just to get to school for 7. So that's a 2-hour plus walk time, right? And I remember there used to be kids that lived right across the street from school, and they were always late, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And we were on time. But back to the story is we used to take a lot of shortcuts just to try to shorten the distance to get to school. And there was this community that we used to walk through, and I remember this family. There was this kid that we had the same class together.
Yeah.
And his mom realized that me and her son were in the same class. So she would give me a ride home, and she had what now you'll call like a truck, where you have the cab inside, and then you have the pickup bed or the open back outside.
Right.
And the only way that she will allow me to ride if I sit outside in the back of the truck. So I could not sit inside the cab with her son and mom and dad or the rest of the kids. And as a young kid trying to figure out why this kind of treatment, why that kind of behavior,
Right.
and still trying to understand exactly what's going on, right? And
Right.
then just understanding, and the parents just blatantly put it out there, like, what, man, you should be grateful and you should be appreciative of the fact that I'm actually giving you a ride, because I don't want my kids to be seen with a black kid running
Oh,
around,
yeah.
right?
Right.
So this kind of thing, it's sad to say, sometimes it's hard to talk about, but it's pretty much what we grew up in. It's pretty much what we've seen and there's tons of different stories that I could go
Right.
on. And for me, even having this discussion this evening is very emotional and
Absolutely.
hard to even talk about. But this is a world we live in.
So troubling for a small child to understand that you're so different. You can go to school with, different races, but yet that ride,
Exactly.
suddenly
Exactly.
that separates you.
And I never allow that to really dictate my future. And there's
Right.
been tons of different instances, where
Yeah.
situation like that happen. But as I said, I was instilled early on, treat people how I want to be treated. And, I refuse to let that one or that hundreds of
Right.
different situations dictate my life or my future.
Absolutely. Wow. And Christy, do you have
Yeah.
experience?
So I grew up in the same country, and it's funny that racism happens there, and people may not call it racism because you think, well, the victims can't be guilty of the same thing.
Right.
But in a country where a majority of the people are black, there is still very much a color system, I'll say. So it's either you're light skin or you're dark skin, and everyone wants to remind you, I'll say, all the time, even when you're a child. So I can't pinpoint an age, but I know it would have been in prep school, which is between grades 4 and 11 or so. And there are a lot. I went to a private school, so there would have been kids with lighter skin tones, and you would just by nature become friends with those persons. But when people see that, then they have to make a comment like, "Oh, cookie and cream or, yin and yang. Like, they have to draw attention to the fact that one of you is light and one of you is dark, as if that somehow affects the relationship or changes anything about, who you are.
They just have to highlight the difference of skin shade, really. Yeah, absolutely. Kids can be so mean sometimes without realizing it,
Yeah.
And Nolan, what is some of your experiences?
Yeah, I remember it was like similar, very young, on the playground, getting called names, and that wasn't really as bad as when I was probably in grade 3, and we had a school where we had to go to another school to the dentist. And there was a group of 3 or 4 that would go at once. And I remember it was really cold. It was winter time, and when I went to the dentist, I was getting ready to leave, and the next group of kids were coming, and I couldn't find my scarf. And the dentist was always an adult, says to me, "Oh, you didn't have a scarf when you came in. You're just trying to steal one."
Oh.
And I was like, "No, I had a scarf. Why are you saying that?" And it bothered me. And then as I was walking back to the school, the next group of kids said, "Hey, Nolan, we found your scarf." And I was like,
Yeah, absolutely.
"Tell the dentist that my scarf fell off."
Right.
Yeah.
But immediately he judged you.
Yeah,
That
and
you couldn't.
it was you knew as a person, even when I was I would have been 8, 9 years old, I knew that's what he was doing. It's not like, "Oh, are you sure you brought one?" It was, no, you're trying to steal one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you knew right away.
Absolutely.
It's like, it just angered me even as a kid. It angered me, and
Yeah.
it's not good.
Always have that
Yeah.
kind of hanging over you that people think that, I'm just here to
Absolutely.
steal something.
Yeah.
That is tough. And with that thought, I mean, we hear a lot of ridiculous things about our races. But come on, give me one sentence, some of your best one-liners that people have said about your race or you, and ridiculous things, really. And let me start that one off. This is one that I've heard recently, in fact, that Indigenous people have different blood than everybody else. Now, Viv, your wife's a doctor. She's my doctor, in fact. She's examined my blood. And I suppose if we needed a professional medical answer to that, she'd give one. But no different blood, same human blood as everyone else. But with that thought, I think you have a similar story.
It's kind of weird. Where that has been, something that as a kid grown pretty much straight throughout my childhood into adult life is you hear this, as a black person you don't have the same blood as a white person or as a Chinese person or as an English person or whatever it is.
Right.
And I guarantee you, if you cut any race, the same blood and all the different particles within the blood is in everybody's blood, right? So just that statement alone, like honestly, it just boggles my mind. Like
Absolutely.
and some people. I remember even as a kid, talking to friends and growing up, they'll say, "Hey, you know what? There should be separate blood banks. Blood bank for white people and their blood, and a blood bank for black people and their blood, because we have different blood." So just hearing stuff like that as a kid, and even as a young adult, even as an adult, like honestly, it you wonder where the stupidity from people come from, even thinking something like that. So just don't get it, don't understand. And you're right, my wife will tell you that it is absolutely no different. And the millions of doctors in the world and scientists and everybody that tests in blood, they will tell you there is absolutely no difference.
There's no new blood out there.
Nope.
No new
It's the same
blood
blood.
types.
Nope. Just a little different in types and who can get what and
course.
so forth like that. But other than that, they're all the same.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Christy?
can go. Yeah. I've had people argue with me about being able to get a tan or a sunburn, which I definitely can get,
Of course.
But no, our skin has built-in SPF.
Yeah,
so, Or,
Wow.
or God left us in the oven too long.
Yeah.
So
That's
we got that one.
a good one.
Wow.
Yeah, this one's a
Well,
bit burned.
hot's hot and the sun's the sun,
Yeah.
and I don't think the sun knows skin color. It'll burn you, whatever color you are. Blister's a blister, doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Nolan?
Funny story. A kid in grade 2 says to me, "You know what? Your palms, they're white, and scrub harder. It'll all come off."
Yeah.
And I thought that's kind of weird, man. That's
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know where you would get that from, but I mean, they have no idea, right?
No
I don't
idea.
think he was trying to be malicious. I think he was trying to say, "Hey, you could be like me. You're just dirty." And I was
Yeah.
like, "That's
Just wash it off.
Yeah, just wash it off." And it's like, it doesn't come off. That's just the way I am.
And Christy, you had a similar experience with the child.
Yes.
That.
Yeah, my mom. It's happened to my mom.
As well.
When we moved to a small town, she was working with children, and she went to cross this child across the street, and the child was terrified, would not take her hand, and then when she got to the bottom of it, the child was afraid that if she held their hand, the black would rub off on them, and they would become black,
Wow.
which is crazy to think.
How misconceptions
Yeah.
start so early and they grow and grow
Yeah.
and absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing those. You know, a little piece of advice I like to leave with people when I have awareness talks is take a look at your social circles. Who are the people that you are interacting with and spending time with? You know, if they're only people that look exactly like you, then it might be time to broaden your circle a bit. Get to know people from other cultures and races. You know what? It's okay to ask people questions, open-ended questions. People generally like to talk about their families, their cultures. They like to share about their traditions and their experiences. Learn about people's lives. There's a richness that comes with experiencing new culture, tradition, diversity, and food.
Yeah.
Viv, I've dined with you. I mean, I love your Jamaican chicken. My mouth burns for hours, but that's a highlight for me, I tell you. But when we watched now George Floyd's death and the rallies that followed as a result, can you kind of walk us through some of your thoughts and emotions when you've watched that and see what's going on? And what do you hope to see as an outcome? And more specifically, what are the practical things the average person can do to help bring some healing and reconciliation to this situation?
Geez. Just watching that entire, incident on the TV and, on your phones and whatever electronic device you have, as a black person, the thing that come to your mind is, when is it going to happen to you? You know, I'm here talking to you right now,
Yeah.
but this could be me tomorrow. So, we live our lives and we take day by day sometimes for granted. But as a black person, you pretty much honestly have to live each day as if it's your last, because it could be your last. And it was really hard to watch, and working my career field as a firefighter paramedic for the last 15, 20 years, and seeing some of these things happen in front of me, and numerous times speak out against it, and really nothing changes or nothing happen. It just makes me think, when is this gonna happen to me? I have a beautiful wife and two beautiful girls,
Yeah.
and when are they gonna get that phone call that I'm dead? And people can sit down and I don't even know the word or how to put this in context to say, oh no, that's not gonna happen. It's Canada. This stuff like that doesn't happen here. Or I'm from the U.S. and it happened there. I'm from Jamaica. It happened there. I'm here in Canada and it happens here too.
Right.
So it's really a scary place to our position to be in right now as a black person. And it was really hard to watch, seeing that the man was calling for his dead mother, that he can't breathe. And how many times do we have to watch this on TV
Right.
all over the world for us to decide that this is not? And honestly, it is to me, looking at that, it's not even so much a race. That is a person calling for help. It doesn't matter if he was black, white, Chinese, whatever it is.
Right.
That is a person sitting on the ground, another person kneeling on his neck, and he's hollering for help. And nobody did anything. And the guy with his hand in his pocket as if it was okay. That's hurtful. It's
painful to watch.
Yep.
And for someone like you, you are saving people's lives. You are trained to save lives, all lives. You risk your life to save other lives. Yeah.
Yep.
But yet, it's wrong when you have to fear for your own
Yes.
every day and wonder.
And the end part to your question is, how do we change it, or how do we? It is honestly, it's stop seeing people as color, stop seeing us as human beings, and somebody's hollering for help.
Yeah.
Step in and say something. It doesn't matter who is doing it, whatever it is, say something.
Stand up for people.
Of course,
Love people.
of course.
100%. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's good. Christy?
Yeah, I didn't watch the video. I saw it going around, but I think as a society we have become a bit desensitized to violent acts through TV and through the news. So I'm like, I cannot watch somebody die.
Yeah.
Like, it's not entertainment. And I wouldn't want to watch it even if I was there in person. So I can't just go and click this and watch it, as brutal as it was. So I heard about it, and for a long time after, I'd say for a couple of days, it was, my initial response is, well, this has been happening forever. This is normal.
Yep.
So it wasn't a shock. It wasn't, to me, it was just another day. Okay, another black person got killed by a cop. Okay. And the surprise, like for me, it was more surprising to see people responding than it was that it happened again. I'm like, okay, why are so many people actually doing something this time? Yeah. And so I just I took a step back. I didn't post anything. A lot of people were posting and having opinions, which is great, but a lot can get lost in that with everyone just talking. Social media soldiers, I call them, because I'm like, a lot of the injustices that happen against black people, it's not on social media. It's in person. It's in real life. Right. So for even people to stand there and watch it and witness and not say anything, like, I get it, you're scared for your life, but just the humanness, as you said, it's not a race thing, it's a human. And for no one to step in and risk being hurt, I don't think a cop honestly would have shot a white person if they had intervened. Like, that's my honest response. And maybe there wasn't anyone there who could have done that. I don't know. But I think I'm glad people are responding.
Yeah.
I hope it's not a 2-week response.
Right.
And then it's left again to the black community. Because to me, it's the same as when we're fighting for women's issues. It's the women fighting for themselves. And who's hearing that? Like, who's hearing black people fighting for black people? Who's speaking to the people making policies? Who's speaking to the police? Who's actually going to be able to change something, right?
Right.
So for me to go and take time to stand in the streets and protest, and then everybody goes home and we forget about this and it's Monday and it's cool, I'm like, that's not okay with me. I'd rather stay home than go and protest for nothing to happen.
Absolutely.
And if we're going to protest, let's really protest. Let's protest for days. If we're going to go off social media, let's do it where it's actually affecting something, not 2 hours of blackout time and then right back to a regular schedule,
Right.
you know?
I agree.
That for me is, I think it's more hurtful than helpful to the situation. But yeah, It didn't. I think the weight of it didn't hit me until weeks after. Not watching the video, but I watched a movie actually, and something similar happened in the movie, and then for me to process in that moment, like, okay, this was a real person. There were many real people who this has happened to them, and their families are left without answers, without any even apologies, without any sort of healing. They're just left to deal with whatever after. So that's when I began to process it. And as Vivian was saying, for me, I don't feel threatened as a black person. One, because I'm a woman and there are more crimes against black men. And also, this is Canada versus America. So I think there being less black people here, I'm a bit more worried for the Indigenous community here, especially in Saskatchewan and Regina, where we have such a high population. But one day I was out for a jog, and I thought, wow, I am running through the back alleys right now. Somebody could look out their window and think I am a criminal.
Right.
Somebody could really think that. So just having those little moments, but being reassured I'm in Canada. And then somebody said, well, if people had guns here, it would be the same. Which to me is a scary thought that, it's one little law that's separating us from so much violence. So I'd say there's a lot to unpack, and I know, honestly, I don't know how they'll move forward in America with this. I'm glad with the steps they're taking and even reopening past cases. For people, regular people, I hope they ask questions. I hope they're willing to step in and risk something. It's like seeing somebody choking and not doing anything, just watching them choke to death. That's the same thing. Somebody who can't breathe versus somebody who can't breathe because of somebody else stopping their breath, So I hope people will be willing to intervene, even if it's messy, even if it costs them something.
Yes.
That's what I hope from this, and that people will have conversations like this and ask questions. I think sometimes people get defensive in situations like this, and I'm not going to become a cop basher or anything like that, because I know there are a lot of police who do their job without even crossing those lines.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that's the right response, but I definitely do think that more needs to be done to ensure that those bad apples don't come in. As somebody said, you can't have bad apples when you're walking with a gun. We really have to figure out ways to not let that slip in, and to make the penalty so harsh that people wouldn't do it,
Right.
To make it like, okay, well, not to say it's a race thing, but it is a race thing. And if it was a white life, that cop would be in jail immediately versus, there's people protesting. If it was a white person who was injured in that way. So I think making the penalty the same, no matter the race, not trying to dig into the victim's background 100%. And say, well, he did this 5 years ago and he's truly a criminal. And that's not the problem here. The problem is this is a human, this is a life. Yeah. So I think just not doing all that victim blaming and really just calling it what it is.
One statement you said, it was normal.
Yeah.
That's troubling.
Yeah.
And awareness, the goal is for people to see these things and say, this is not normal.
No.
We have to
Absolutely
turn that normal into not normal. And Nolan, what were some of the thoughts and emotions that went through your mind, and what do you think the average person could do, and how can they respond, and what are you thinking?
Well, when I first saw, of course, it's happening again, and anger and the whole same emotions that come out. Why is no one doing anything, and why are people recording instead of getting involved? And it's just to me, it's just like another one, and it's time to change. And I'm glad what they're doing with the protesting and stuff like that. But I just hope it's not short-lived and they go on to something else after that. So I think people need to, and they are getting fed up of people dying. And it's not black people dying; it's just people dying, and especially the police. You should be running to the police for safety, not running away from police thinking I'm gonna die and I might be the next guy. And
that's a good point.
Things have to change. Maybe this is first step in that.
In making some of those changes.
Yeah.
And for me, I was really happy to see just really everybody out there marching.
Yeah.
White, black, Asian, Russian, China, wherever they're from. It was a really good feeling to see everybody out there standing and saying, you know what, that is not right.
Right.
Because there's so many cases and so many instances and situations that have happened before to another black person. Like 3 days after, I think, I would say the past couple of days, another person got shot in the back while running away, right? So, and maybe nothing gonna come out of it. And how many?
Right.
So it was really encouraging to see everybody, different cultures, different race, different religion, different beliefs, different background out there protesting. And again, I hope it's not a 1 week or a 2 week or just and everything go back to be normal.
Well, unity
right?
is powerful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful to
Yeah.
see unity. And
Yes.
that's the role we all have in being unified. Thank you for that. When my kids were little, I knew that I couldn't be everywhere to protect them. And it's an uneasy feeling sometimes as a parent, and leaving them in the care even of a designated authority. You know, you find that, am I preparing them the right way? But I found as a parent, I had to kind of prep them for different things that they may encounter, the conflicts. I'm not always going to be with you, but you need to know how to respond to certain situations. Because as a parent, the reality is we're always going to be concerned about the well-being and safety of our children, no matter their age. But now, do you feel differently? Do you feel that you have to prepare your children different because they have black skin and the resistance they may bump up against? Like, Vivian, you have 2 wonderful baby girls. Are you going to raise them differently?
You have to.
Yeah.
You definitely have to. And it's sad to say that. That coming out of my mouth shouldn't be okay to even say, but it's the reality. You know, I look at it as, you know, a white person could get up in the morning and, you know, make breakfast and say to their kids heading out the door or dropping them off, you know, have a good day at school, hang out with your friends, learn as much as you can. I'll see you later. We'll make dinner, and you know, we'll play if you have a son or whatever, we'll play basketball. If you have a girls, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And I'll see you later. When I have a conversation with my girls, they're babies now, but having those conversations will be, you know, if the cop says this, you know, or if the teacher say that, or because a lot of times we kind of point it toward, you know, whether it's a cop or some form of authority, but sometimes it's not. It could be a teacher, it could be a guidance counselor, it could be the principal, it could be your classmate, it could be bullying,
Right.
whatever it is, right? So you have to, I have to, with my girls, you know what? When you see this, this is how you react. When you see this is how you behave. So it's not me waking them up and, you know, making breakfast, and I still do all of that, right?
Yeah.
I do it most of the time, you know, to my wife, you know. No, but you know, it's the truth, right? So you know, both of us getting up and making them breakfast, but before we sending them out the door, is, you know, these are things that you got to look for, and you know, just don't react to it, because the sad part about it is you are treated a different way, and when you react, then you're the one that get blamed for the situation that happened, right? So it's like double standard. So it's just different, and you have to prepare your kids different. And it's sad to even say that, but it is true.
But I don't think the average person understands that.
No, they don't.
As a black parent, what you're faced with, or any other race, you know, that, we're preparing our children differently.
Differently.
And it's, we need
And
to see
praying
change.
and hoping that you'll see them at the end of the day.
Wow.
And people might think that, no, that's not true. No, I'm telling you, it is.
That's a real
This is the world
fear.
we live in right now. And people can say, oh, this is only happening in the US. Or this is only happening here, in Russia or China or some far country where India or something like that, where it's not, seen a lot. But no, it's happening right here in Canada.
People hurt people
Right here in Canada.
all over the world, right?
Yep.
And I think like TV portrays black people in such a stereotypical way, which is not true. And people especially think of small towns. When I lived there, I think we were the only black family there. So we're the ones who are coming to knock down all those stereotypes that people have about black people. And you have to, one, not make yourself look like a threat.
Yep.
And to think, okay, well, is this going to reinforce the stereotype? Okay, well, I should be upset here, but I can't be upset
Yep.
because if I'm upset, now I'm the upset black person.
Yep.
So it's you're on duty all the time trying to present yourself in the right way so that people accept you and
Yep.
you're not the other forever.
Like 100%.
And Christy, did your parents coach you certain ways in how to prepare yourself for conflict that you might face?
I'll say, I don't know if it was an active coaching, like sitting down and saying this, but our mother is she's very straightforward. So she's going to tell you as it is, and she will not accept that kind of treatment from anyone. So she would tell us how she would respond to it. And also just responding in a way that with dignity and maintaining her professionalism, but also speaking the truth and educating people where they need to be educated. A lot of it is ignorance, I find. Some things that people could really do the work and learn things when they come at you with some ridiculous things. I think if some people say they don't know, but I'm like, if you don't know, you're choosing not to know because there's so much information out there. So if you're going to say stuff like that, it's a choice. So I think the coaching that we got was more so by example. So even going back to those stereotypes of black people, like black people are loud and they're aggressive and
They're threatening.
yeah, we're a threat. Black families are, broken, or black men are in jail. They can't take care of their children, or just those stereotypes that you see on TV. And that is not the truth for a lot of black families. Like, because education is so important, a lot of black people are educated because that's really going to be your stepping stone. If you have access to it, you're going to take it. And going that route, then you learn stuff that maybe your parents didn't know because their parents and their parents' parents were slaves and they didn't have those opportunities. But
That's right.
my parents are both educated beyond high school. They are employed. They tell us to go to university. All my sisters went to university. They have jobs. Nobody's, out there jobless, freeloading on the system. My parents are married. My father never went to jail. So it's really living your life, and although it's not your job, but making it your job to combat those stereotypes and be like, this is not all that black people are capable of doing. And I don't want to speak for all black people, but in a way, you have to know that people aren't going to look at you as the representation for all black people, and really just modeling something positive.
100%. And when I have Indigenous awareness talks, one thing I say is that, it's creating those new definitions of who we are, right? Being the ones to go out and show the world, look at what we can accomplish. We are not who you think we are. We are just like any other person, and we have dreams, and we can accomplish so many things, and it's changing the definitions out there and those ideas. So thank you for that. And Nolan, what are your thoughts?
I was just going to continue what you were saying there. It's funny how we all have to almost be aware and think this stuff all the way through. And it seems like my wife's a Caucasian lady. She can't fathom the stuff that we have to go through every day because she just gets up, eats breakfast, puts her makeup on, and goes to work, and she doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff. And we're on all the time, right? You're thinking, what is this guy thinking? What's he doing? What's he looking at? And it's like we're on all the time. And you got to show people that you're not the stereotypical even a black person or an indigenous person, gets tiring sometimes.
Now, you have two adult children. You've
Yeah.
raised two wonderful children, and
No, thanks.
Jim's pretty excited he gets to officiate your daughter's wedding in a
Yeah,
couple of weeks.
for sure.
Congratulations, that's exciting.
Yeah.
But they, like me, have parent with white skin,
Yeah.
parent with dark skin.
Right.
Did you have to prep them in any way to say that, it's going to get a little bit tricky
For sure.
sometimes?
Actually, like Tracy and I've been married almost 28 years now. When we were first married, I didn't want to have children because I didn't want them to go through things that I had gone through. And she can fathom that. She goes, that won't happen now. That's the world's different now. But I said, it's different. It's different for people that are different, color or handicap or anything like that. People see a difference, and you're not the same as me. And I just really didn't want to have children, and finally, a lot of prayer and
Well, you raised two amazing kids.
Thank you very much.
They
No,
are
they're
wonderful
good. Yeah.
people. Yeah. We touched briefly on law enforcement officers, and in general, when we take up a leadership mantle, that role is to protect others and to stand up for other people. And it comes with this expectancy of integrity and trust. Now, we have members in our church family who are law enforcement officers. I have good friends who are in this role, and I have 3 cousins who are officers of the law. I trust these individuals. They are good people. And I know you all have people that you know and love that are in this field of work. There are top quality men and women that we know and we honor for their commitment to serve all people, and sometimes in the most complicated and difficult environments, and even dealing with members of their own race. But they do it with integrity. But when a leader violates this role and violates the law, and disregards the safety of another human's life, now that's extremely troubling. The Bible says this. It tells us to be angry, but do not sin. Be angry and do not sin. Well, I'm angry when I watched another man kneel on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds while he suffocated to death. That makes me angry. And many of you watching, everyone in this room, it makes us angry. And the first thing we do is we want vengeance. But how do we keep ourselves responding in a Christ-like way when the Bible tells us, yes, it's okay to be angry, but be Christ-like? What does that mean to you? Vivian?
I honestly don't know because he says be angry, but don't sin. I don't know how. I don't know how not to do how to do that honestly, right? Because your anger comes out different ways.
Absolutely.
Words that come out of your mouth or your actions or things you might do. So it's hard to I'm not sure how to answer that question because it's really hard.
It's a big question. It's okay.
Even for me to even do, right? And I'm not supporting any of the violence. I'm not supporting people burning people buildings down. I'm not supporting people shooting at cops. I'm not supporting people looting. I'm not supporting any of that bad behavior. You have a peaceful protest. You're marching. You're showing that we're together, and just having that togetherness is really how you're gonna really affect change, and not just let it blow over in a week. And find the avenues and the areas to really talk to the right people who are making these laws and who can really make some form of change, right? Because a lot of times we go out in the street and we protest and we burn buildings down and do this and do all that kind of stuff and nothing happens.
Right.
So honestly, it's finding the people who are really responsible for making the laws or making policies, and find these people and either vote them in or vote them out. Vote people in that is gonna be for life, not against life or for violence, right? You got to find people to who's going to represent you, who's going to represent your value, not just a value for a specific group, but for everybody.
Well, I think you just answered that question. You find the solution rather than creating larger
Yeah.
problems.
And
great.
somebody once said, when you pray to God for an answer or solution, you have to be willing to be that answer. And as Christians and ambassadors of Christ and the hands of and feet, thinking of what we should be doing, I think in instances like this where it's a social justice issue, Christians should really, I think, take the charge on that, because every good thing comes from God, right? And that's peace, that's going to be love, that's
yeah.
the wisdom to really change things, and we have access to that,
Exactly.
So I think we should really be taking advantage of that and having a voice and really stepping out and taking risks and saying we're going to lead the charge on this. Okay, if we're going to protest, well, we're going to organize it and make sure there isn't that violent aspect of it, so that it's actually doing its job and not having the negative name, because they like to focus on the negative
Exactly,
part of it.
because that's takeaway.
Yeah, it's taken away.
Having all the looting and the violence and all that stuff, take away from the true message that you're trying to portray. And you have people that's gonna, take advantage of those situations in this
course.
time to do the
Yeah.
wrong thing, right? And that's I think where some of my anger come from is, there's a message that need to be sent. But you have this person over here that's acting inappropriately or out of the way,
taking
and,
the
and, and,
focus.
and it takes the focus away
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
true message off. We need to find a common ground where we're all being treated equal and be seen as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing we have control of is our responses and
Yeah.
our actions, and we can model that for all those out there too. So, yeah, that's great. Modeling that proper way to respond and accessing the wisdom, like you said, that we need. It's good stuff.
For sure.
Nolan?
Because, yeah. As Christians, I think we have a huge step up because we have Christ to look, as our role model, and that's comforting and freeing, because if we didn't have Christ, it would just be a war within, and you'd get angry and you wouldn't know how to respond properly. If I didn't have Christ in my heart, I might be one of those angry people that don't know how to express the anger properly, and smashing and breaking things, thinking I'm making a change, but I'm actually, like I said, taking the focus off the problem.
Right.
So as Christians, I think we got a huge responsibility and advantage to pray through these things.
Yeah.
And as much as laws and politicians are important, I think that the prayer to resolve these things is where it's going to end.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
and
Yeah.
we
I
should
agree, 100%.
definitely focus.
That's good. Reconciliation is a really big topic in our country right now. It's a huge initiative and commitment with Canadians and Indigenous people right now. But reconciliation in Canada was actually birthed out of the response to the apartheid in South Africa in the early 90s. And it was to help stop that racial segregation. Now, our country has adopted this principle with the Indigenous community, and efforts are in place. But reconciliation is needed amongst all people. The greatest act of reconciliation is when Jesus died on the cross so we can be reconciled with God. And we see that in 2 Corinthians 5:2, when it says, "Now all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ, and has given us a ministry of reconciliation." We are all called to be ministers of reconciliation. This means we all have a role to play in building a future that's full of peace, acceptance, and equality. We all have to, though, as you mentioned in your responses, we all have to put that effort in, though, and stand up for fair treatment for all people, all colors, all backgrounds. Our actions need to be ones that are going to produce positive and lasting impacts in this world. We all have platforms to be world changers. We all have influence in our circles and in our networks. We have opportunities to talk about these and rebuild fractured relationships. And when I have opportunities to talk about awareness, I like to call the rebuilding of broken relationships the tapestry of relationship building. And I use that metaphor because we need to always go back and look at the original design and see the beauty that was originally intended. But then we have to look at the pattern and where it began to change. Where did the snags come in? Where did the holes form? And where did we get to this place right now where we have this frayed, broken tapestry in our relationships? It's looking at the events, it's looking at the history and the issues to understand when and how, as I said, things went wrong. Because right now, today, we are the weavers, and we all contribute to the fabric of today's world, if you will. We can build a beautiful, strong, lasting tapestry together, but we have to do it by using the threads of wisdom. So, in closing, I would like you to share with me, what does reconciliation look like to you? And what are the actions in people that mean the most to you?
For me, driving down the street, I get pulled over by a cop. Maybe for speeding, because I have a heavy foot. But there's something that I do all the time, and I've been doing this from as far back as I can remember, started early driving, is that every time I get pulled over, the very first thing I do is put all my windows down in the car. I open the sunroof, I put on the roof light, and I turn on all the lights in the car, and I hold on to the steering wheel like this.
Wow.
So I've been doing this pretty much my entire life, every time I get pulled over. Right? That is not normal.
No.
That is absolutely not normal. And the reason for doing that, because I want to make sure that officer or that person that's walking up to my car can look clearly in the back, clearly in the front if I'm by myself or I'm with the family. And it was crazy that I did a couple months ago with my wife, and she was like, "Why are you doing this? The kids in the car, they're cold." But it just turns into something that's normal, because I want to make sure when that officer walks up to the car, he can see in the back, see everything, so there's no, he can't prejudge me before he get an opportunity for us to have a conversation. Okay? I want to be able to walk into an elevator and see a white person in the elevator, and he or she doesn't scoot to the other side and grip their purse. I want to be able to walk down the sidewalk and a white person is jogging towards me and don't run across the other side of the street and go around and come back on the other side. Right? I want to be able to go sit go to a restaurant to have a meal or just to have a drink, and there's a table with maybe one white person sitting there, and I can't go sit there, and he or she doesn't get up and move to a different table. So reconciliation to me is seeing each person, every individual, as one person.
Yeah.
I watch my wife and my daughter in the hospital here in Regina, and for hours, for 12 hours straight, my wife begged the nurses and the doctor, "Our baby is not doing well. Somebody come assist."
And she's a doctor.
And she's a doctor in the same system here in Regina, and nobody did anything. "Oh, she's fine. She's fine." No, absolutely not. My wife is bleeding out as a doctor in the hospital here.
Yeah.
And the nurse walks out of the room. Said, no, you're fine. That is absolutely not acceptable.
No.
So I'm sitting there with a couple days or a couple hours old baby and my wife is dying and you walk out of the room and say, no, she's fine. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
That this is that this is 2020 and this stuff is still happening.
That's right.
So reconciliation for me is seeing every individual person as a person. Don't look at the color of my skin. Don't be afraid of me. I am not I've never been arrested. I've never been in trouble my entire life. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I go to work. I provide for my family. I look after my kids. I do the same thing the average person at home or over this world try their best to do for their family. I'm not a threat to anybody. I've been a firefighter paramedic as long as I can remember. Before that, I was a chef. And I help people.
Right.
I remember maybe when I just started off my firefighter career, my paramedic career, I got a call for a gentleman cardiac arrest. And I show up to the house in the ambulance, me and my partner,
Right.
or my partner and I. And I walk into through the front door. And the minute I walked in, the gentleman saw me and was like, you're a black man, do not come inside my house. He's there having a cardiac event.
Yeah.
And he said, you're not touching me. Those events don't make you feel like you're welcome or you're part of society.
Right.
And they continue to, the continuous stereotype. Oh, he's an angry black man, or he's not present, or he's scary. No, really? No. Again, I've never been in trouble.
Right.
Love my wife, love my kids, love my fellow neighbor, love my pastors, love you guys sitting here. I have no anger or animosity or any hard feelings against anybody.
Yeah.
But this is how the world sees me.
And those are that's the real answers. Vivian, thank you. That's what we need in the name of reconciliation. That's the raw truth. And I thank you for being so vulnerable to share.
Thank you.
Christy?
I'm shaking even saying that right
Yeah.
now, honestly. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we will have to talk. People will have to ask questions. And I don't mean black people. I mean other people need to start asking questions. And a part of it is ownership. Whether or not you personally committed a racist act or, whether or not you were the oppressor. I think just owning that as a part of, well, this is the story of that group of people, and I may have done something to contribute to that. Because I've even had a recent experience. A friend was asking me or telling me that racism doesn't happen that much here. It was kind of like, it doesn't actually happen that much, right? and almost question me like, okay, well, tell me when was the last time this happened to you? And I'm like, well, if you haven't seen it, it's going to be very hard to explain to you, especially if you're going to be asking me with that attitude. Because what preceded was, I would give an example and I would be like, well, how do you know it was actually race though? It's like, because I am the one experiencing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And because you've never experienced it, it's hard for you to wrap your mind around it. And the tricky thing about being in a church environment is that...
Your response.
Well, yeah, my response one. But I think in a lot of ways, you won't experience racism in a very, what's the word? Direct way. So a lot of people can think it doesn't occur. And definitely for me, I would say I would experience less than my sisters or other people who may not be in the environment that I am in, where people would probably be more polite or something. because of their relationship with Jesus. But definitely it does happen in other overt ways or subtle ways that people may not even recognize is racist. And I think just owning that and being like, okay, well,
Yeah.
was there something wrong that I did there? Or would being open to making that mistake, open
Yeah.
to
Just a lack of awareness, really,
Yeah.
right?
like going in knowing like, okay, I don't know everything that's gonna be offensive, but if I do something offensive, can you let me know? So
Yeah,
that because
have these conversations, right?
yeah,
Yep.
because I don't want to contribute to that. I don't want to be a part of that story.
Exactly. And I feel like I'm sorry to cut you,
No,
but
go ahead.
I feel like that's kind of one of the. And I'm happy this is happening. This kind of conversation, because that's how each culture we learn from each other, right?
Right.
It is to put it out there and for us to have these conversations to see, what have I done within myself to contribute to that stereotype or that kind of behavior,
Right.
and how can I change? Because until these conversations keep on happening, nothing change.
Yep.
So these conversations, it's sad that somebody have to die for this conversation to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But this conversation needs to be an ongoing conversation, like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or yearly basis. And I'm happy. I love the church environment that we're in, because just coming to church and seeing all the different flags and that inclusivity of everybody, right? And seeing the different culture within the church, and different times throughout the year we'll have that mosaic kind of attitude where different cultures would wear their traditional outfit or different things. So it's really good to be in that kind of environment, right? But are we only doing that for show? Are we doing that for a one-time thing to say, yeah, we're all inclusive? But are we really having these serious conversations to talk about people's lives?
Always, right.
I am here talking to you right now, and I may not be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's how serious this is. So I'm sorry to cut you, but honestly, though, these conversations, we need to have them.
And we all have to be open to the fact that we all have a place where we need to change.
Yeah.
We all have areas where we need to grow.
Definitely.
And understand.
Definitely.
We all have to do something.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, Nolan? What does reconciliation mean to you?
Healing, we need to heal, and we need to be educated, and we need to have these talks ongoing, and they're uncomfortable, but they're refreshing. We need to involve God, obviously, because I think just talking face to face, it's good, but when we involve Christ, then things happen. And it's good, like you said, for our church family to have these conversations and educate people. And I think the more we know about each other and what you eat, what you like, what you don't like, where you like to go to vacation, we think we're all the same, but we're not, and it's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to be proud, and we need to have conversations. And I think the more people understand, you're just like me. You like this.
Exactly.
You like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you what? You like this?
And we have so much in common,
Absolutely.
more in common than what divides us.
That's right. Yeah, for
But
sure.
are we taking the time, right?
Yeah.
To learn.
I used to be a chef before. I will cook for you.
Oh man, I don't miss too many meals.
Never.
Right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah,
each culture have their own little niche or own little areas of thing that they do. I would love to get to know the different
That'd be
colors and the
awesome.
flags for the like I remember going to a mosaic and saw the traditional chief, and he was dancing, and how amazing that looks.
Absolutely.
And just seeing the colors and the different the food and the texture and the different things that you guys cook.
Yes.
Amazing.
I know.
And just my Jamaican
Yes.
ackee and curry chicken and
Jerk chicken.
and all that stuff, So there's so much that pulls us together
Absolutely.
that actually separates
It
us. So
shouldn't
we
be
need
one
to-
week in mosaic.
No, it should be an ongoing
Yes.
thing within our church family,
Absolutely.
within
Absolutely.
with conversations.
I agree, yes.
if you don't know me, get to know me.
Yes.
I am an amazing guy. I believe
He
you're
is.
an amazing sister.
100%.
I believe you're amazing. Sister Chantel, I believe you and your husband are awesome. Pastor Jim, if you can hear me. Get to know me.
Absolutely.
Don't judge me.
Yes.
Get to know me.
Yes.
And let's have these just have these conversations.
Absolutely.
And that's a key word right there, judge. Don't judge.
Don't prejudge me.
Don't prejudge.
And yeah, like thinking of even I don't want to, but Indigenous communities, like talking to people from where I used to work. I think from the outside, it's easy to look at somebody's story and think you understand why their life is a certain way. But I think without blaming and without judging, understanding the reasons for some things. Okay, so if you do fit a stereotype, what is the actual reason for that? You know,
Yeah.
why is that thing present in your life? Is it a choice, or is it just years and years of systemic,
Yeah.
you know, whatever you want to call it? Is it? It's not a choice. It's actually something that has happened to you, and now people think that is what you're
Right.
choosing. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say is that if you're going to, if you don't want to be a part of the problem, don't be a part of the problem when people aren't looking, because I sometimes see that people will in public say they're not. People like to say, I'm not racist. I'm like, okay, you don't have to tell me you're not racist. Don't do racist things. But when people are no longer being watched,
Yeah.
then you hear things.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
this may be personal, but I remember once I was out with some people from church, and someone was talking about dating. And I remember this female was thinking about different people, and she mentioned someone, and somebody else in the group was like, oh, but that person's black. And then they looked at me like, and then it was, no one talked about it after that. It was just a super awkward moment.
Just a oops
and,
moment.
And other people have said stuff like that to me, like, oh, Christy, like, I wish I had some black people for you to date. And I'm like, why do they have to be black?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's just that race thing, it does come up. And for me to mention that to other people, they're like, oh, well, maybe it's not that. It's these other things. And I'm like, honestly, though, people do consider that even in relationships, because like, oh, well, it's another culture. And people also have an idea of what their family should look like. So
Right.
that race thing is really going to come up in many different ways. And even, I think even simple things like job hunting, I have had people say, like African or Nigerians,
Yeah.
say to me, you're lucky, like you have a white name. So when people look at your resume, they're going to think you're white. And you're going to get an interview over this person with a name that they can't pronounce. And it's those simple little things that I am like, yeah, you're right. I do have a white name. And that may be an advantage to me, and to somebody else, that's a
That's
disadvantage.
so true. When I started with the school board, I got sent to a school, and the man that was waiting for me, he goes, "Oh, you can speak English." I was worried with that last name that you
wow.
would be. I was like, "Is that a compliment?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
So many, false judgments again
Yes.
that we
Yeah.
talked about. I thought about reconciliation for a long, long time, and I think I can just sum it up in 4 words. 4 words that I would define reconciliation as: include, honor, listen, and share. But I want to share a story with you. A few years ago, I went on a work trip to Vancouver with my work team. And when we were there, we had an Indigenous elder come in, meet with our team, and talk to us about reconciliation. And she was from the Squamish community. And she said this thing to us that always brings it back to the simple things of reconciliation in my mind. She said, reconciliation is really an easy thing to do, and I do it every day. So you can imagine it got her attention. And she said, when I walk down the street, I make a point of looking at people right in the eye, and then I smile at them. She goes, because a smile communicates the same message in every language, every culture, in every race. It says, I accept you. It's a gesture of friendship, and it says, you belong. And when you do that, do you know what happens? She said, they smile back at you. But even greater is they're going to walk down the street, they're going to look at somebody right in the eye, and they're going to smile at them too. And it spreads and it communicates that message of belonging, acceptance, and unity. And it's a beautiful thing, really. And that's really our goal, is to build a culture where we do accept everybody. So I want to thank you so much for bearing your hearts, sharing your stories, bringing awareness to so many people watching. Can I encourage everyone out there watching to keep the dialogue going? Just as we said, keep it going. Let's keep talking about this and increase our awareness and be people of change. Let's embrace diversity and celebrate each other and honor the destiny and purpose on all of our lives. Let's work together and extract that venom of false judgment that is in our world. And let's keep Jesus as the focus point and build each other up, because that's how we find unity. And let's commit to carrying a culture of honor everywhere we go. So thank you for making time for us today. Be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.